you've known me for over a decade, and the first thing that comes to your mind is that I'm passionate about Tesco meal deals. I'm thinking, am I really that dull and boring? Welcome back to Money Illuminated, the podcast where we help you make confident decisions with your money, one episode at a time. Today, we're talking about the kind of key area that me and Jack are essentially qualified in. It's financial planning, an area where there's a lot of misconceptions about what it truly is, who should be having financial planning, and really what's involved in the financial planning process. And as always, we have my star co-host, the financial wizard of financial planning. It's Mr. Jack Saunders. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. Minus in being in desperate need of a haircut, I am all good.
It's at that kind of mid stage, isn't it, between short to cut and ready for the next one?
It is. When you have longer hair, I used to have, you can get away with it for a few more weeks. But when it goes as short as this, it's a 3 on top. So it needs to be done every other week, really. And the barber did not have time in his diary this week, so I'm not happy. But we'll get through it, hopefully.
Hey, when's it booked in for?
Next week. So it's 1 week to go.
Next episode, everyone, a fresh Jack will be waiting to go. But thank you very much, Jack. I mean, this is our first proper episode. And I think financial planning is a very, very important topic. I mean, all of the advice we give is kind of centered around this. But I guess this episode, hopefully, is about making it real and even, hopefully, a little bit exciting.
We'll try. If it can be exciting. We find it exciting, but a lot of other people don't. I guess that's why they employ people like us to do it for them, right?
It's very true. It's very true. But I think before we get into the kind of meat and potatoes of what today's episode is and, what financial planning really is, who's it for, how we can help, I thought we could start with a nice light-hearted intro. We've done a lot of research, and I think I found a really nice topic that we can hopefully have on most episodes, and it's what I class as fantasy finance. So me and you, Jack, we love football. We love fantasy football. We also are on top of finances to some extent. So I thought we could merge the idea together. And what fantasy finance is supposed to be about is within all planning for everyone, for it to stay consistent, you almost need that kind of guilt-free spending to have, if that's on big, large things, or if it's, getting a coffee every single day, even though you've got a coffee machine at home. So I thought this could be, and you can take this any avenue you want, but something that you have every month or every year that you put to the side and you're like, oh, I'll just spend that on something I really like.
Yeah. It is a key part of financial planning, really, because you've got to, as much as it's not all about, but mostly about planning for the longer term future and doing that kind of stuff when you're older and not working as much. Yeah, it's a real key component to making sure that you stick to those things. It's a bit like when you diet, right? You don't want to just be full health all the time because then you'll binge eat chocolate or whatever it is. So having a little and often, I suppose, is the better way to look at things. Okay. So kind of what sort of stuff do I perhaps spend that money on? Is that what we're going to go through? Yeah.
Yeah, something that you're like, oh, I could be much smarter with my money here. I don't have to spend it on that. But actually, it keeps you motivated. It means I don't, as you said, with eating, it would stop you bulk eating the chocolate all the time.
Yeah, no, I like it. What springs to mind? Definitely, well, we're both heavily sports related, aren't we? We do a lot of sports. So for me, it's probably anything related to darts or golf. I'm trying to get into golf. Definitely not particularly good at the moment, but in my head, if I spend money on things that are supposed to help me, that should make me better. And darts, I'm a decent darts player, but I still look at that and think, well, if I buy some new flights or points, that sort of stuff, then that's going to turn me into Luke Littler, right? It definitely isn't, but that mindset will never go away, I think. So those are the kind of things I put money aside for to spend on guilt-free. And yeah, coffee's a great example, right? I don't need to have a coffee machine, but it's something that gives me a pleasure every single day, so I'm not going to go without it. Now, what about you? What's in yours?
I've got a great story, actually, and I don't think I've told you this before, so I think you'll find this very funny. But it was about 6 months ago. I was away in Devon with my family and a couple of close friends, and had a couple of drinks. It got to the later stage of the evening where you're having those kind of stupid conversations, if you like. And me and three others were talking about what we're almost really passionate about, that we spend loads of time or money towards. And, my partner loves Harry Potter, very committed to watching the films every quarter. My friend Taylor, he's the one who makes this comment in a minute, loves golf, spends so much money on Vinted, on clothes and stuff. So like normal passions there. And he randomly just turns to me. This is 100% a true story. And he just looks at me and he says, Elliot, I know exactly what you're really passionate about, meal deals. And I thought, you've known me for over a decade. And the first thing that comes to your mind is that I'm passionate about Tesco meal deals. And I'm thinking, am I really that dull and boring? And he's like, no, but like every time I see you, if it's at the golf course, if it's going around each other's house to watch sport, or you're picking me up, you always have a meal deal on you. And to be honest, it really rattled me at the time. So it got a few laughs out of me. But then I digested that information and I went away with it. And I thought, do you know what? He's 100% right. I reckon over the last 4, 5, 6 years, I'm spending £40 to £50 a month on meal deals. But then I took that away a bit further with, my savings, my financial planning as such. And I'm thinking, well, it saves me a lot of time. There's a lot of different options. And in my mind, it's really cheap and easy. So, if it saves me the hour of my lunch break so I can go on a walk or I can watch TV or anything, and then I can come back, have some lunch that I actually really like and crack on with my work, then to some extent that fits perfectly with the kind of guilt-free spending, if you like. But so in one way or the other, he's absolutely spot on. I am very passionate about meal deals, and perhaps it's the reason I've been successful in my career so far.
Maybe put it all down to the Tesco meal deal, right?
So if Tesco are listening and want to do a collaboration, let us know.
I'm sure they are. Don't worry.
But no, I think the kind of purpose of that is, we are normal people. We say we struggle with saving just as much as everyone else does. It's very important to give your kind of planning the space to also enjoy life at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. The diet analogy, I think, is a good one in the sense of you've still got to have that stuff now. You can't be scared to spend money, and some people aren't in a fortunate enough position to be able to do so. So for those that do have more disposable income, it's still important to recognise that you can spend some of that, but you've got to have one eye or 1.5 eyes on the longer term stuff as well.
Certainly. Brilliant. Perfect. Well, I think that's a good place to leave fantasy finance. Hopefully we can do a couple more episodes of that one. But I really want to go into the kind of bulk of today's discussion, and that's financial planning. Illuminated, us as a company, you as an advisor, you've been heavy in kind of bringing this into fruition with the company, getting a process in place. So I think a perfect place to start would be kind of just a bit of a summary as to what is financial planning, and then we can go on to discuss, what's involved and what people or who should be looking into having some financial planning.
It's one of those things. It is really difficult to explain what it is to people because it's not necessarily one thing where you can see straight away the value it adds via numbers on a screen and things like that. But how to summarize it, I guess financial planning is really aligning your money and the decisions you make with money and assets and liabilities, incomes, expenditures. It's aligning all of that to what you want your life to look like. So it's kind of a combination of, well, the people we work with have an idea of how they want to spend their time and what they want to spend their money on, the things they like doing. For you and I, that's things like golf and darts and going to sporting events and, going to the pub, all that kind of stuff, right? And that's going to be similar for a lot of people, but other people will have different things that they really enjoy doing as well. But it's important to have that kind of link between your money and being able to do those things, and not just now, but also in 10, 20, 30, 40 years' time. It's really focusing on what you want your life to look like, what your real goals and aspirations are, those dreams that you have. It's aligning all of that to then being able to put your money to work to achieve those things. People often think that financial advice, financial planning is all about products, investments, that kind of stuff. And absolutely, it's all part of the financial planning process. But the difference between just going through some financial advice and product advice and financial planning is essentially, we could just sit here and say, well, you need a new pension or you need a new ISA. Why? Well, because you've got money to invest and it needs to be working for you. Financial planning is more of a case of saying, well, this is what you want your life to look like, whether that's now or in the future. What do you need to do with your money in order to achieve that? Do you need more flexibility? Do you need your money to be growing more? Do you need to save on tax so that you can save and invest more? Do you need different types of insurance or protection policies? It's doing all of that, looking at all of those kind of aspects and factors, and then putting you within a strategy across all of those different things that is working towards achieving that life that you want to have. And for me, I don't really feel like I have the right to tell people what they should do with their money until I really understand them, what their childhood was like, what was money like growing up, what really drives them moving forward, what gives them purpose in the morning, and so on. And it's then about just aligning and marrying all of that up together to hopefully get people to a more prosperous future.
Yeah, perfectly put. And I think it's fair to say, it's not one size fits all. Everyone is so different. And like you just said, you need to learn about the person before you can talk about the goals, the aspirations. And lastly, the products come pretty much right at the end.
Yeah, no, they always do for us. And obviously when we're talking to clients or prospective clients, we always are very clear that, look, products, investments and things are definitely going to be a part of this, because most people that seek financial advice seek advice because they're approaching retirement or they've inherited money, there's been a change in circumstance, and therefore they think action needs to be taken to deal with that. But actually, financial planning is almost like knowing where you are now, or trying to understand where you are now, trying to understand further what you want or where you want to be in the longer term. And it's then about kind of setting that route on the sat nav as to how do you get there. And then once you get there, what are you going to do? How does that change? There's a few different elements to financial planning at different life stages. But yeah, it really is about the people. People first, plan second, and then products last, I guess is the way to put it. And there's a few stories that I have around sort of how financial planning helps people, but in particular there's a couple of stories that I'd like to focus on. But one of them is I met a client 3 or 4 years ago now. I was working with an advisor previously, and he made the decision to sell investments as COVID kind of started. So we had, I think it was something like a 30% decline in 30 days. It was a really, really quick and sharp decline. And most people know, as much as it's difficult to stick to this, most people know that selling when that happens is not the right thing to do. That's how you effectively lose money. Until you sell, you haven't really lost anything. It's just the value of what you own has gone down temporarily. And this particular person, incredibly wealthy. The money that was invested was less than 10% of his overall net worth, right? So it really didn't matter in the grand scheme of things, in the sense of the numbers, but he still made the decision to sell. We advised, don't do that, but ultimately it's his money. So as much as we say we don't think it's a good thing to do, it's his choice, his decision. Anyway, he then sold to cash, didn't go in back into the markets for 6 or 7 months afterwards, by which point the market had already recovered and gone on to go beyond where it was before COVID actually happened. We went back into the market. The advisor we was working with retired 6 or 7 months after that, and I took over. And I really sort of wanted to start that conversation when I first met the client with kind of, why did you do this? And I run a risk there. I don't want to upset him and say, well, you shouldn't have, or I told you so, and so on, because that's not what we want to do at all. That's not the way we look at it. But I just wanted to understand why he made those decisions, because for such a smart guy, it's surprising almost that he's gone ahead with that. And there was multiple layers of questioning that we went through to really dig deeper. But eventually we got down to the point of him saying, well, the money is basically for my wife and my two daughters. Okay, well, if it's invested and you don't plan on dying at least for another 30 odd years, does it really matter if the market's gone down 30%? It's uncomfortable, but it doesn't really make a difference, right? Because it will come back up. And his logic was, yeah, I get that, but it just felt safe. It feels like the right thing to do. And by digging deeper and figuring out why it felt like the right thing to do, the answer from him was it made complete sense in the end. He basically had a really, really challenging upbringing with money. He didn't really know who his parents were, had zero money at all to be able to do anything. And he's worked really, really hard to have a fantastic career, build up a lot of wealth and security. And to him, selling at that moment and not seeing the numbers on the screen go down even further felt like a sensible thing to do to protect that money for his family. Now, it absolutely wasn't the sensible thing to do, but at that moment in time, because of his upbringing, it felt like the right thing to do. And that was one of the moments where I realized after going through that, actually, the kind of advice that we give people and the exams that I've done, I can't even tell you, I think it's something close to 20 exams that I've done to become chartered fellow and all that. It means nothing. What really matters is being able to understand how people view money, what their relationship with money is, because then we can help them make the right decisions. And like you said, it's not one size fits all. Everybody's different. Everybody's got a different story and a different relationship with money. So as much as we know roughly what you need to invest in and what philosophies you should have and how much roughly do you need in your portfolio to achieve X lifestyle when you retire, everybody's different and the decisions you make with everybody are always going to be different. And again, the dieting and the fitness example is a really good way to look at this. It's really difficult to learn that stuff yourself. If you want to become absolutely shredded and have a six pack and really muscly, all that sort of stuff, and clearly that's not me, right? Well, I've tried to do that myself before. I thought, yeah, I could do this. How hard can it be? It's really hard to hold yourself accountable and do it. Financial planning is the same sort of thing. Kind of know roughly what you might need to do. You need to invest, you need to save, you need to reduce tax, all of that stuff. Yeah, wonderful. Everybody has an idea around how to do that. But sticking to it and holding yourself accountable and putting more away when you can and making the right decisions consistently, it's super, super tough to do. And that's why I guess we exist.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a perfect example where hopefully learning from that and creating the almost process to get to know your client straight away will hopefully build that trust where if that ever happens again, he knows, he trusts your opinion and the plan you've helped essentially put in place where he wouldn't make that decision again. And
Yeah,
therefore
exactly.
makes the right one financially moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a clear plan in place to show, look, that this is where we're going to be heading. This is what it should look like in the future, albeit things change. But as a blueprint, as a roadmap, we've got that in place. We've since gone through 2 declines, not of the same nature, but 15 to 20% declines since then. And no bad decisions were made. In fact, I think he actually invested more money during one of them. So that mindset shift has definitely happened. I don't want to make myself sound wonderful at all, but a lot of that will be just being able to reframe it in the client's mind to say, actually, no, this isn't a bad thing. This is a good thing if I want to invest. If I'm not investing more money, it's fine. I've just got to ride the wave. As difficult as that can be, we don't take that away at all. We spend arguably more time with clients focusing on things aren't going to be good all the time to prepare them for it and make sure that they're comfortable when that does happen, or, well, as comfortable as they can be, I guess.
Yeah. And we don't know what's around the corner. And unfortunately, with investments, they're a long-term approach. There's going to be a lot of downs over a long period of time.
Yeah. I mean, there's loads of stats out there, but roughly speaking, the market goes down 25% of the time. So, roughly 25% of the meetings that we have over the years with clients are going to be actually, from an investment perspective, it hasn't been amazing, but 3/4 of the time, hopefully, it is more positive and better. And like I said, it's about, well, what opportunities are there? How do we take advantage of the fact that things aren't looking so good at that moment in time? And obviously, yeah, a lot of the investment decisions we make are there to stick to the plan in those times, as well as the good times as well.
And I really think when the markets are going down and you're having their more difficult conversations, it helps give the client peace of mind to see that the plan still works, even if the markets have dropped.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It's common for the plan still to work, but the difficulty is if you can't see that, that's when you might result in sort of taking action, which again it feels sensible at the time, but it doesn't make good sense for the longer term benefit. But this stuff's difficult. It's not easy. It's easy-ish for us because we do it day in day out. But when it's your own money, it's difficult. And like you say, you and I, we're not going to sit here and pretend that we're perfect with the amount we put into our pensions and ISAs and things. We try to be, but life gets in the way. So it's then how do you adapt? How do you make sure that you're doing everything you can, even when things aren't going as smoothly as you'd hope for them to be going?
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And I'm cautious about time, so I think it's a perfect time to kind of move on to maybe a bit of a myth within the industry and what people think about financial planning. But, you don't have to be rich or consider yourself with hundreds of thousands of pounds to have a financial planner. What way would you summarize, who financial planning is actually for and who would, get benefits and should consider speaking to someone?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And obviously it's one that prospects will ask us, am I right for this? You definitely don't have to be rich. For me, a lot of financial planning is about creating true wealth. And that's not just numbers. For some people, it is. That's all they really want to focus on is how do I get my numbers as big as possible? But really, true wealth in my eyes is just being in a position to do whatever you want, whenever you want, with whoever you want to do it with. So it's about aligning your finances to be in a position to have that level of wealth. And whatever the number is, whatever that looks like, you absolutely don't need loads of money to have a financial plan, because hopefully going through financial planning will create more for you anyway financially moving forward. It's for pretty much everybody, really, right? It's not free, so there's costs attached to it. Some people will be put off by the costs involved. It doesn't cost the earth, and for pretty much anybody, the value you get out of it will be worth its weight in gold, particularly if it's an ongoing relationship. But I think the classic examples are if people are approaching retirement, if a spouse has passed away, if you've received an inheritance, career changes, those kind of things, big changes that are coming up or have happened tend to be areas and times at which people focus on having financial planning. But it absolutely doesn't have to be just for the rich. I guess, again, the sat-nav analogy is really useful of, it's almost like saying you can't start using a sat-nav until you're halfway through the journey. That's not true. You can use it from the beginning of getting on that journey, right? It's definitely going to help. So yeah, it's for everybody. Definitely not just for the rich.
100%. It's a great analogy of it all. And I guess, have you got any kind of practical tips for people that are thinking about it, or things that they can consider before actually speaking to someone?
Well, it depends what way you look at it. I think if you're looking at what can you do, what foundations can you set financially to set yourself up for more of that true wealth in the future, I think setting yourself goals, dreams, aspirations, really thinking about that is huge. What do you want your life to look like moving forward? What holidays do you want to go on? What restaurants do you want to go and enjoy the food from? How do you want to support your family? Those kind of things are really important to think about, because that then plays a big part in the decisions you make today with your money. There's some simpler stuff as well, like automating your savings, I think is huge. A lot of people don't do that. As soon as that money comes in, if it goes out to another account that you're not looking at every day, it's easier to build up money over time. Automate your bills as well, that sort of stuff. You then got things like make sure you review your car insurances, all that kind of stuff. And I guess that goes back to the point of it's not just for the rich. If you can save £100 on your car insurance over the course of a year, that's really, really valuable to you. And do that over however many years you're going to be doing it for, that compounds up to quite a lot of money you're going to save for the future. Right? We could be boring and say put that difference into your pension, get the tax relief on it, or we could say, well, actually, that might give you the ability to go and do more things with your family whilst you're all young and together and so on. So that kind of stuff is important. I guess another one which I say to a lot of clients, if I'm going to give one more, is when it comes to saving and investing, always do a little bit more than what you're comfortable with. You know, if your employer provides a pension for you and they do they do 5%, if you do 5%, don't stop there. You know, if you can afford to do 6 or 7%, do it. And then next year, can you nudge that up a little bit more and just keep going through that mindset, because your future self will really, really thank you. And you don't want to get into your 50s, 60s and be going, oh God, you know, I would need to put loads of money away now to live that life I want to live. Actually, if you can think about that earlier and just slowly nudge things up, pay slightly more in than you feel comfortable with, that's then going to allow you to have a much more comfortable financial future whenever that may be. You know, it's the difference between retiring 2 or 3 years early or going on that extra holiday every year when you retire. It's having the time for that money to be working for you is super important. So yeah, definitely save more, make it a slightly uncomfortable number. I'm not saying leave yourself short every month, but if it's 20 quid a month that you're not really going to miss, but it would be nice to have that extra 2 pints when you go to the pub after work, you could probably put that away, if we're being honest.
Yeah, I think they're both very good tips, because automating your system, putting it in to the pension, you're not going to see that money. It goes out before you see it, and therefore you'll get used to you putting that money away for the goal in the future.
Yeah, exactly. It's out of sight, out of mind, right? It's super, super valuable. So it's definitely one of the top tips from me.
Perfect. Brilliant. Well, if you're happy with that, Jack, I'm happy to wrap that episode up there. I appreciate we've gone slightly over our typical time, but I think that's been a really good, just brief overview of financial planning. So hopefully, to anyone that's listened to this, if you've got any kind of questions that you'd like to send across, or feel free to leave a review, subscribe. We'll be back with plenty more episodes in the future. So thank you very much. This has been Money Illuminated.